Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I'm working in my square art journal with my Stamperia papers, so get comfy and let's get crafty. This 8x8 sketchbook is the art journal I have been using to create art journal pages with my Stamperia paper pads. I went on a shopping binge one day and bought a whole bunch of them, and I'm trying to use them to make beautiful pages. The background paper is from the Arctic, I think is the name of it, paper pad. I have trimmed it down. Originally it was 8x8, but because of the binding in the sketchbook, I have to trim the top off just a little bit. I do have one piece of paper, this brown strip at the bottom, that is just a wood grain paper from my stash. And then the images I've cut out are from the art paper pad. So my first plan of action here is to grunge up the edges a little bit because I have trimmed down 2 of those 3 sides. The finished size of the page is like 7 3/4 by 7 1/4 to accommodate, so there's a white border around the page and also to accommodate the coil at the top of the page. I did choose to make this particular art journal a top opening. Top fold, it's not a fold. It opens to the top. The spirals are at the top of the page as opposed to the left or right. I have also pulled out my archival ink and added some ink to the edge of this brown pattern paper because of the white core. I don't want that to show either. My plan here is to have this background paper appear to be like a wall and the brown to appear like the floor. So I'm also taking that archival ink and going around the images I have fussy cut. So I have a stack of suitcases, and then I have kind of a collage of frames that I cut out, including cutting out the center of that back frame because it was on a different pattern paper. And I wanted the pattern paper that I chose for my background to show through that frame, not the page it was printed on. So anyway, I am being very cognizant of the cutouts of these suitcases. I did go in and trim all the way around them, and some of those suitcases are printed to look as though they're not exactly flat anymore. So I did take some time and go around that. Now, one thing is that the pattern paper pads that I bought all used a few of the same colors, so things tend to blend together very well, but also blend into each other very well. So I decided to pull out some white gesso and just push this back a bit. Now it looks like I'm whitewashing the entire thing, which, I mean, I guess kind of I am, but gesso dries back more translucent than it looks when it's wet. So what this will look like is that it is an old whitewashed wall, like a wood panel wall that has been whitewashed, and maybe appears, maybe it looks like it's in somebody's art room, or there's just going to be multiple colors in the background there. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set that with my heat tool, making sure that gesso is all the way dry. And then because I covered it up a little too much, I'm going to go quickly around the edges again. I'm not adding any more ink to my foam blending tool. I'm just kind of fixing what I gessoed over. All right, and you can tell that paper is dry because it is starting to curl. And now it's time to start putting my elements together. So like I said, I want this wood grain paper to appear as the floor. I'm going to adhere that down with this liquid matte, let's see, it's matte liquid medium or liquid matte medium. I don't know, whichever order those words go in. It's a liquid medium and it's matte. It's not shiny. And this will help it will help the papers stick together, obviously. I'm using it as my adhesive. But also, when I put it over all of the things on the page, it will create a non-porous surface, which will allow me to add some more shadowing later, which I think really finishes off this page. In fact, I probably spent more time with the shadowing than I did in the assembly of the actual page. So now that I have that floor adhered down, I'm going to put a layer of liquid medium all over the page, and I'm going to start assembling my items. Now I want the suitcases to stack on the left-hand side there, so I'm going to pull those out. These Stamperia papers are a little bit thicker than your traditional scrapbook papers, than most traditional scrapbook papers. They're probably more like a 60-pound almost. They feel a little bit thicker. So I'm going to nestle this down here on the left-hand side of this page and go over it with my paintbrush, except that I forgot that I want to squeeze a picture frame collage in behind it. So gratefully, all things are wet, and I can just lift that up and squeeze that right on behind there. And it looks like now that collage of photo frames and like wrapped canvases and such are stacked against the wall, kind of nestled behind the suitcases to keep them from falling over. And that was kind of what I was looking for. The third element, because, threes are amazing, we like things in groups of three, is this potted plant. I thought I could put it right here on the floor, and it also looks like it's serving to hold the frames in place as well. Like I can see my room looking like this because as much as I don't like to admit it, I'm a piler. I've got little piles of stuff. But this is intentionally beautiful piles. My piles are shopping bags full of stuff I haven't put away yet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that liquid medium so that it's nice and dry. You do want it to be all the way dry before you go to take any pen nib to it, or it will ruin the nib of your pen. I'm trimming off the edges of that wood grain panel, the flooring, and then I'm going to pull out my archival ink. I think I used potting soil for this whole page. And I'm going to ink up that blending tool and just fix the sides where I trimmed that paper off. And then I'm going to add a little bit more ink along the bottom so that it creates a deeper shadow. And I think that just adds to that look of that being a floor plank. Like maybe that's where the seam of the next plank is. I don't know, just my opinion. All right. I pulled out my Faber-Castell Artist Pit Brush pens. These are the big pens. And I pulled out a peach colored, a blue, and a brown. Spoiler alert, I only use the brown. But the nibs on these were almost too big to go around those framed pieces. So I pulled out my thinner barreled pens. Same ink, same properties. So Pitt pens are India ink. India ink is a permanent pigment, but on a non-porous surface, you have a minute where you can smear it and blend it around. So I left it in normal speed for a minute there, and now I'm fast forwarding all the things. And I really spent a lot of time. Like I said, most of the time creating this page was in adding these shadows and contrast, outlining all of the images. That collage of frames was a piece of pattern paper that I cut off of the background, and I went around each one of those frames to make it look as though I had cut out all those frames and stacked them there on this page. It's, not perfect, obviously, because it's paper, but I really wanted those frames to all have their own individual borders. Same with the suitcases. I went around the whole stack, the stack as a whole, and I made sure and went around all of the corners where the little brass corner pieces are on those antique style suitcases. I went along the tops and bottoms of those suitcases. At this point, I pulled out my bigger pen again because it puts more ink down, and I really wanted to create that shadow on the floor. I wanted there to be a very obvious shadow where these items are sitting on this floor. And I just felt like the skinnier pen was not putting ink down fast enough for my eye to visualize what was happening. And that's okay. You can see I'm just smearing it every once in a while. I grab that baby wipe. It's very damp. It's an almost dry baby wipe. There's not much fluid left in it. And then I went back with the skinny pen. And this particular canvas looks like it's a painting that's been wrapped, and it has some tags on it. So I'm going around the tags to try and emphasize that there are two individual tags there. I will do that to the tag on the top suitcase as well. It just kind of creates some shadow and dimension, which I think makes those those two little items pop. It makes them look, they're more visible, and I love it. It turned out exactly as I was hoping in that instance. I did pull in that skinnier pen again and go down the sides, and anytime I wanted a deeper, darker shadow, I brought the thicker pen, the thicker barrel pen back in, just because it puts more ink down at one time. Like I said, I just kept going at it. I'm sorry if my voice is weird. It's early in the morning and my sinuses haven't finished draining yet, but anyway. So that canvas, that painting that looks like it's a wrapped canvas and had the tags on it, I was not able to successfully trim around the twine bow that was printed there. So I pulled out some brown and white baker's twine from my stash and made a little bow, trimmed off the tails, and I'm going to glue that right there on top of those tags to kind of hide the fact that I cut off the bow that was printed there. I tried to trim around it because I was going in between that other frame that's behind it. It was just not very successful. So I just lopped it off and decided I'd put a piece of twine there. I'm going to hold it in place with my scissor tip for a minute while that liquid glue kind of grabs and make sure everything's in place. I thought about doing that with the tag on the suitcase, but decided no, that would be too much extra. Stop it, Jenny. Now I've left that top right-hand corner blank for a quote, and I've printed this quote on my label maker, and it says, "Objects with stories to tell become art." I printed it in the largest font, but in 2 layers, and then I cut it down the middle so that I could kind of center that second line under the first line. This was a fabulous idea, except for the fact that I cut it right. You know how you bend those pieces over and there's a seam in the back, and that's how you take the backing paper off? Yeah, I cut right down that seam. So after many, many, many minutes that I did not make you watch, I was finally able to get the backing paper off of my quote strip so that I could put it on my art journal page. I am now going to add it to my art journal. So like I said, this is a sketchbook. So I have taken and already glued 2 pages together just to make them a little thicker. And I'm going to use the liquid medium to put my page into the journal. So my first plan of action is to, get my brush out of my water pot because I leave it soaking in there so the bristles don't get all stiff, right? And then I'm going to add some of that liquid medium to the back of my art journal page. I'm going for it, man. If there was a gold medal in adhesive adding, I would get the gold medal today. I put a lot on. I wanted to make sure that that heavier paper had lots of adhesive on the edges so that they stuck down really well. And once I had a layer on that page, I just kind of cleaned out my brush a little bit because there was a lot on it and flipped the page over. And because it's a liquid medium, a wet medium, it gives me another minute to wiggle things around. I was having a hard time seeing the edges of that page specifically, there we go. Words are hard. So I made it so only that page was visible. And I'm just going to go ahead and take some more of that liquid medium, put it directly on my brush, go over the edges and the corners, down at the bottom where they're not sticking as well, and just kind of make sure everything has enough adhesive to stick down. And then I'm going to hold it here for a minute and let it dry. And I did put some heavy stuff on it and let it dry for a minute. And then I came back and signed my name along the edge there. I felt like that was an appropriate place to put my name and the date. And here is a zoom in of my quote, and you can see that kind of gessoed crackly background. That's all the paper. All that crackle was already there. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed that art journal video. I have a couple of other videos here I think you might like, as well as a subscribe button. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, I would love it if you did. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below. Do you use scrap paper in your art journals? And have a great day.